What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about Cha-Ching! The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. So it's been a minute. I've been trying to get back on the Joe Abercrombie track, and so this was the next one in line. So for those that don't know, The Heroes is the second standalone novel by Joe Abercrombie, but after reading it, I'm just kind of even further kind of solidified in my stance that you need to read his books in publication order. Is it a standalone? Yes. Could you read this without reading the other books and still enjoy a story? Yes. But are you going to miss out on so much depth and meat and potatoes that were there and that really make this thing juicy and real? Yeah, you're missing out on all that shit. So read them in order. Let's get into it. So here in The Heroes, we're going to be returning back to Adua, and I do think it's like 7 or 8 years after the events of the first trilogy. So right as soon as we get into this thing, we find out that the North and the Union are back at it again. Oh, those rascals, when will they learn? So what's going on essentially is Black Dow, that son of a bitch, is running things up in the North, and he's doing well for himself. He's kind of like etching out a bigger piece of the pie for himself and him and the Northmen, and this doesn't sit well with the King of the Union. Obviously, he wants this kind of put to a stop. So what this whole story kind of covers and what it's all about is this 3-day battle that happens between these two sides. Not just the action, but also the political intrigue and everything that entails all these little threads that play a part in this event, which is one hell of a ride, I have to say. One of the first things I want to get into is the pacing of the book, because this is something I kind of found surprising, and maybe not everybody will have this experience, but the pacing was not exactly on point. It took me a little bit to get into this book. It was kind of a slow start. Once it had me, it really took off, and I was flying through, but then I also managed to hit little bitty snags here and there. But I just didn't find it this seamless ride from beginning to end. Like I said, it did have a slow start for me. But this also rolls back into why I think reading these books from publication order through is gigantic, because what was pushing me forward in the beginning was the knowledge of some of these characters and the interest. I have investment there, so that pushed me forward during that slow start and got me into the part that hooked me, okay? But either way, some people might have just flown through this book, but I had some snags, especially in the beginning. Now, this very well could be because I've took a minute away from Abercrombie's world. So very well, I could have just been trying to get my bearings. Not really sure, but like I said, I just didn't seem as interested right out the gate. If there wasn't something that was hooking me, the things that kept me going were the characters. I just felt it was a slow start. The next thing I want to get into is the action, because come on, it's Abercrombie, so we're talking about that motherfucking action, and it's awesome. It's great in here. Honestly, I was a little surprised though, because of the premise of the book being about, it's a good sized book, and you're talking about 3 days of battle. Now that does cover more than 3 days, but the main chunk of this book is about these 3 days of battle. So you're kind of thinking, shit, with all those pages, that's a goddamn lot of sword swinging, but it's not exactly. There is plenty. And that's awesome, because the amount that he's put in here is probably just the right amount. Because when you start to think about it, how many goddamn times can we swing this sword before it starts to kind of feel played out? So I do think that Abercrombie did, just a genius move in placing the right amount of action, keeping it fucking interesting each step of the way, but then also, inserting this political intrigue and the fuckery and the backstabbing and stuff also. He's kind of spaces things out, and it's great. So the action in here is phenomenal, and it's not just bombarding you from beginning to end. There will be breaks in the action so it doesn't get old, and I just really can appreciate that. One of the things I've actually criticized Abercrombie for in the past is his magic. Now, in Best Served Cold, there was little to no magic, and I kind of applauded him for that, because I do feel like the first lot world's magic was confusing. At least in that trilogy, he has like a soft system, but he kept adding like this history and like za to it, which felt like he was trying to put a hard edge on a soft system, which just made it confusing to me. So it kind of grinded at me. Eventually, after the end of that trilogy, I was just like, loved it, but don't give a shit about this magic. So here, I actually felt like he utilizes the magic a little bit better. There's no real like whiz-bang fucking hoodoo history about it all. We're just going to roll magic out. We're going to use it. It's going to have an effect. Boom, we're on with our lives, ladies and gentlemen. Soft magic system. Boom. I know this seems like a little nitpicky, guys, but sometimes it's those little things that irk us as readers and keep it from being a smooth experience. And I have to say, when the magic rolled out here, I got a little sweaty, but boom. Nope, it's all good. We're not going to get into anything confusing. It's pretty straightforward, and I really do like what he uses in here. I'll just, not without spoiling too much or anything, we'll just say, you know, I applaud the death tubes. Now, we got to talk about these characters because just like action, you got to talk about characters when it comes to Abercrombie because, come on, his stories are very character-driven. That's where we send our focus, right? Is boom, right on all these crazy misfits that he's carved out on the page. Now, I do think that the characters are where this book excel and where it took a little bit of a dive for me as well and slowed down that pacing. And let's get into that. So, first, I'll give you the example of what I found amazing, and that was Gorst. Bremner Dan Gorst is a fucking beast. And his parts, all of his parts, his inner monologuing, his dialogue, his action, everything was so goddamn good. So good. Mwah. If I could give this thing a million stars, like out of 5 stars, I give it an infinite fucking amount of stars. This character really, really hit me right in that black heart. But the thing is, this goes back, guys, to that me saying, read these books in order. Now, Gorst does not have this giant part to play in those past books. Like, he is in them, and you know, events happen. Let's just say that by keeping this spoiler free. Now, he doesn't need to be a huge part in those books because he's going to be in this one. But by experiencing those events, instead of just getting them through a recap, makes those events so much more real, which then makes this motivation of Gorst's now here currently so much more real and organic, and it just feels legit. Like he is so unhinged. But you believe him because you know of these past events. And it's so fucking good. And this is where I'm like, goddamn, the investment in Abercrombie books is really worth it, at least for me, especially in moments like this. Now, where I would give Gorst an infinite amount of stars, this is where I would give Finrey about 2 stars. And I don't know if I've even ever disliked an Abercrombie character, but I don't like Finrey. I feel Finrey reminds me of Madeline Stowe's character from Last of the Mohicans in like a painful way, okay? Finrey is just annoying to me because I guess it just doesn't fit, or maybe like... It kind of feels like a Mary Sue or Marty, whatever those fucking Marty Stew, whatever the fucking word is that you guys use. Because here's the deal. Finrey she's a sassy Union gal who's also a noblewoman. And oh, her daddy is also like the Lord Marshal. And oh, but she's a risk taker because she married a trader's son. Oh, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have ambition. Oh, and she's also gutsy. She's going to tell Northmen where they can stick the sun. No. Finrey, no. And now I'm not saying that other people can't get enjoyment out of Finrey. I just wasn't. She, in fact, slowed the story down for me. After I was hooked on the tale and I'm burning through the pages, she grinded at me so much that I was making really good time one day, and I got to a part with her and I just, closed the book, was like, yeah, I'm good for the day. I don't need to read anymore. And the thing is I know some of you might be like, geez, you're being really rough here, or maybe you think I just don't like female characters. But the thing is that's a bunch of bullshit, because I feel like Joe Abercrombie has brought so many well drawn out fucking female characters. And one that was in here that I would have loved to got more of, I wish that their roles maybe would have been switched, was Wonderful. Wonderful was, well, wonderful. The next thing I want to talk about is Abercrombie's writing, because I do think that he's grown as a writer. And that might seem silly to some of you, considering I just picked apart a bunch of stuff out of this book, and where I didn't do that at all with Best Served Cold. But two things, guys. One, I'm growing as a reviewer, much like Joe Abercrombie is growing as an author. But two, I liked Best Served Cold more. It catered to the kind of reader I am. It was more fast-paced. It was a little bit more hyper and wacky in areas. I just, that was a little bit more my cup of tea than The Heroes was. But I have eyes in my fucking head. I can, I'm reading the stuff, and it's a much more tighter version of anything I've seen from him. And on top of this, he is still doing what we know him to do best, which is subvert tropes, expectations, and God knows everything else, man. The guy is sick with the pen. Not just in the stuff that you see right out front smacking you in the face with the blood, guts, gore, and comedy, but how he's able to play with themes and the underlying stuff that he throws at you. Subconscious stuff. This whole book being named The Heroes, is probably... It's not just because this spot is known as The Heroes. You're going to see throughout, from beginning to end, how Abercrombie plays with the whole theme on what is a hero. And, they can be fucking frightening. So my 2 cents for the slow and the struggling is, yes, The Heroes could absolutely be for you, especially if you enjoy the grimdark subgenre, or you like unheroic fantasy, stuff with scoundrels and blood and battle and just all-around fuckery, This stuff is a whole lot of fun. Just know, getting into it, that I really do believe that you should follow this whole story in publication order. So to get to The Heroes is quite an investment, one that I have found worthwhile. I think it's a little tough in the beginning, but also I have to say, I think that First Law is really shaping up into something that I can recommend to struggling readers when they're ready to hit that challenge road, because Abercrombie's style is not bare bones, and it's not so modern. It is a little, but it's still very much more similar to classical and epic style fantasy. It can, it can get descriptive and even a little long in the tooth in some areas. And that can be difficult and pose hurdles. But also, the thing that Abercrombie does is he throws a shit ton of action, cool-ass characters, and just a barrel of laughs into these stories. So all of this stuff is going to keep you engaged and compel you to push forward, and then you're going to be able to digest this little beefier writing and just, get accomplished at the end in maybe just the same manner that you would a more modern style prose book. So yeah, I think the First Law is really shaping up into something that I would definitely recommend when you guys are ready to challenge yourself with something with a little bit more substance. All right, guys, as always, thanks for spending some time down here at the channel and to Joe Abercrombie. Akadoos! 2 thumbs up, Lord Grimdark. Looking forward to getting into Red Country. Hopefully I can stay on this Abercrombie track and not get too derailed with all the fucking million other books I want to read. There's just so goddamn many, guys. These are good problems to have, eh? Anyway, you guys can do the thingies. I don't give a shit. Do not care. Nope. Maybe I do a little bit. You know what time it is? Peace.